Vuodenpäivä. Vastasin vai halitetne gihtit, kolletne otson, vahti teike Gothenburg Universitetti, oasalahti tämän NNMPF tappamus. Moi halitetne buktit oftan, ahte voi torjo, tahjege tutjo, oftast aina sami servo tagain, keit kulttuura ja ealahussat chatet, kriminaliseera jufot, just Suoma parlamentteja, mearöidä, ahteet tianu suoppamussa, lahka odastus, kalgatit jo juvat fapmuit.
Before we begin our presentation, we would like to express our solidarity with the Sami communities whose cultures and livelihoods are being criminalized by the act to regulate salmon fishing in Dietno that is being discussed this week. This proposed act violates the rights of the Sami to their culture as stated in the Finnish constitution. It also undermines Sami customary law, Sami participation in the management of their own natural resources, ancestral wisdom, religious and cultural traditions, and our rights to self-determination. Our work in the last year as a part of the Academy of Finland-funded artsequal research initiative has been focused on Sami experiences of extracurricular arts education in Finland. As Lauri Väkevä explained in his keynote, the publicly funded arts education system in Finland, called Basic Education in the Arts, or BEA, offers subsidized lessons to children and young people in music, dance, literature, visual and performing arts in almost every municipality in Finland. In many ways, this system is founded on a principle of equality. Resources are allocated per capita and per confirmed student. There are equally high teaching standards across schools and art forms. There is a common core curriculum, and students are accepted to study programs according to the same criteria. However, Sami education researchers Pekka Keskitalo, Satu Uusiautti, and Kaarina Määttä suggest that minorities do not necessarily experience this principle of equality in the way that it has been intended. This claim has informed our research task to explore Sami experiences of inequality in the BEA system. But we are also looking for new opportunities for the system to learn, to improve, to share, and to engage positively with Sami arts, pedagogies, worldviews, and ways of being.
I myself felt early on that this research could not be a traditional study, but the indigenization of research method has been a gradual process of learning for me. When I began this research, I knew nothing of Saminess, nothing of Sami arts, culture, society, or what Sami experiences of arts education in Finland might be. Feeling that I was unable even to formulate the right interview questions to ask, I decided, together with Sami researchers from the National Sami Archives and Sami education leaders, that it might be best to simply buy people a cup of coffee and sit down and ask, so how did you end up doing what you do? In this, I met over 20 artists, arts educators, and education leaders, and every conversation was decided upon together in situ. I returned to my Helsinki office with hours and hours of rich conversation and perspectives. There were agreements and disagreements, different views on similar experiences, different experiences, joys and hardships. It was easy enough for me to identify themes in these conversations, but I found myself stopping short of interpreting what they might mean. I found myself in the midst of what Lee Patel describes as an unsettled pause. But at the time, I think I explained it more as an extended panic. Reflecting upon why I felt so stuck, I realized that I felt it was unethical for me to interpret these stories in isolation from the communities from which they were taken. Furthermore, it was not my place to approach these stories looking to emancipate Indigenous Sami arts, cultures, and peoples from the colonial structures of the Finnish education system or politics more broadly. As although I'm not Finnish myself, I benefit from this structuring of bodies, land, and knowledge every day. So, attempting to reconsider how I could do equality and do decolonizing work within the research project itself. As we talked in the Critical Pedagogy Symposium yesterday, how not only to talk the talk, but to try walking the walk. I looked for opportunities to move towards whatever I found uncomfortable and unsettling, and learn from those who know more, who know better, and who know differently. Only beginning to understand what it means when we say that Indigenous peoples' interests, knowledge, and experiences must be at the centre of research methodologies and construction of knowledge about Indigenous peoples, I asked Hildá to join me in the analysis and communication of the research.
I am a Northern Sami Joiker and songwriter from artsequal. I have completed some class teacher studies in Gothenburg, Norway. I am in my first year of studying global music at the Sibelius Academy, and this is my first experience as a researcher. Working together, Alexis and I have very different experiences and perspectives. We both spent a lot of time asking each other why we do things like we do. And somewhere along the way, this discussion turned to how we do research. We asked ourselves how our own work could be an opportunity to push back against traditional, academic, and colonial ways of knowing and coming to know. But criticism wasn't enough. We had to find an alternative. If we wanted to produce different knowledge, we had to produce knowledge differently. And we chose to do this through yoik. Rather than a musical performance, yoik is a way to communicate. Also, instead of yoiking about someone, as I might sing a song about my grandfather, you yoik them. So I yoik my grandfather. In this way, yoik is a second name. It serves to establish solidarity and position oneself and others within Sami communities. So, who was I going to yoik in this research? Or who or what was this yoik for? Together, Alexis and I spent a lot of time with the conversations she had held with Sami artists and educators, and worked together to construct a composite character that captures these different voices without reducing them to a single unified perspective. After many revisions, we named this complex character Eile. Alexis has written Eile's narrative story, and I have yoiked her. Eile's yoik was born in a jogging track in Helsinki after numerous drafts and revisions. I felt it was important that I didn't simplify Eile, but yoik her in her complexity and multi-voicedness. As a character weaving together the multiple perspectives of so many people, Eile's yoik does not represent any one geographical dialect nor political perspective. Also, as she engages with broader processes of globalization and change, Eile's yoik is also not totally traditional.
Literature scholar Vuokko Hirvonen describes yoik as a gift, not only in the sense that one receives such a gift from the earth spirits or other natural spirits, but also in the sense that you're not supposed to make a yoik for yourself. You must get it as a gift from someone else. We share Eile's yoik here today in recognition of the gifts that we as researchers have received through sharing in the perspectives and stories of Sami artists, educators, and educational leaders, but also as an attempt to give back. This giving back reflects an ongoing commitment and desire to ensure that academic knowledge, practices, and research are no longer used as a tool of colonization and as a way of exploiting indigenous peoples.
Let me introduce you to Ayla.
Reflecting upon Ayla's character, as we've expressed today through her yoik, and we will express through her narrative at the upcoming CDIME conference in Kathmandu, we will conclude today with 3 critical Sami reconsiderations of teaching and learning in the arts that might serve as starting points in creating spaces and support frameworks for Sami students, artists and educators to maneuver their individual, complex and multiple artistic and cultural identities within the BEA system. Beyond this, these reconsiderations may also enable new possibilities for BEA to actively engage with and learn from Indigenous artistic and educational onto-epistemologies and practices. The first of these is a Sami philosophy of ataldat, a derivative of the Sami verb to give, arit. Today, ataldat is usually defined as a skill or giftedness, whereas any young art student might be labelled as talented or gifted. What BEA institutional structures and arts pedagogies can learn from these Sami understandings of ataldat is that these gifts exist primarily to be shared with others. Researcher Kuokkonen notes that ataldat emphasizes the importance of recognizing and fostering individual interests and talents, but also the significance of giving and sharing in order to sustain the needs of others.
Related to this is the importance of interconnectedness that break down the divide between mainstream and others to look at things from a more complex perspective of interconnected individuals navigating and constructing changing living realities. As such, essentialist and fixed notions of Finnishness or indigeneity are troubled, require active engagement with difference and change, not as an obstacle to overcome, but an opportunity to learn, to be in relation. As Juliet told us yesterday, this is not always comfortable work.
In fact, Sami pedagogues have argued that it should not be comfortable work. Balto and Erstmer suggest that engaging in dialogue and practices rooted in indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing makes the hegemony of the mainstream ever more visible. From this, Hildá and I would argue that comfort is an indicator of privilege, of stasis, of undisturbed harmonious status quo. If you are comfortable, it means you might be operating solely within your own onto-epistemological and artistic sensibilities and values, potentially at the exclusion of some of those who understand and experience the world differently. This sense of comfort is maybe even more problematic in systems such as BEA that are publicly funded and enjoy rhetorics of equality that they offer arts education for all. Rather, In striving for meaningful, significant, ethical learning and teaching, we find promise in the Sami pedagogical concept of learning that stirs, whereby, similarly to a pedagogy of discomfort, both teachers and students can engage with uncertainty, complexity, and contradictions. As a means to stir teaching and learning in BEA, Indigenous perspectives may hold potentials to highlight the artificiality of existing power structures and begin to lay the social, cultural, and artistic conditions necessary for positive change.